What's up, everybody? This is Carlos and Winslow, and we are back with another episode of the Creative Whole Podcast. So thank you for joining us. What is up, Mr. Lowe?
Not a whole lot. Just kind of hanging out. We're having a little chat before and you were making
Yeah,
fun of me, which is fun for you.
it's
Um
therapeutic.
I mean, you saw me crying and you still did it, but whatever. I'm just
That's what
kidding.
makes it that's what makes it therapeutic.
Wow. Well, that's good. That's good for you. I'm just kidding. It
when
was
you
fun.
really when you release cortisol through your tears, it makes me feel better.
Wow. Well, at least there was something good out of it, right?
Well, I was not only making fun of you, I was also making fun of myself because I was saying I'm
You were.
crooked, and I always lean to the side, and you're like, your face
What
is
was that
crooked.
like? Was that like a Vogue or what? You remind me of Madonna right now. Hashtag Madonna.
Yeah, hashtag Madonna. But yeah, I'm like, yeah, I feel crooked, like my face. Your face is crooked. I'm like, dang. I'm like, no, my teeth are crooked. My teeth throw up gang signs. so, so we were having fun banter. It wasn't just me picking on you.
Well, mostly it was, but I
Nah,
mean, it's all right. No, it
well, you
wasn't.
said
I'm just kidding.
some. Yeah, I don't know whether to believe you or not.
You probably shouldn't right now.
Uh, we're a little
So
sassy,
I'm
are we?
glad. I'm glad everybody is tuning in, or for the ones that are tuning in. Once
Ain't
again, this
nobody
is
tuning in right now. We're
Winslow.
not live.
We are live. Drink your water. Just drink your water. So last week we finished up, or actually a couple weeks ago we finished up the Ryan Holiday book. Then last week we touched a little bit on fear and courage in a biblical perspective. Today we're going to be going into a book, and we'll probably be going over this for the next few weeks, and it is called Leadership by John C. Maxwell.
Um, it's called Leader Shift.
Leadership. I tricked
Just
myself.
saying.
I pranked myself right now. My son always
Yeah,
says that he's pranking me, and I just pranked myself. It's pretty good.
that's all right.
But
That's all right to
Leadership
prank ourselves.
by
Leader
John
Shift.
C. Maxwell. Yes. And it makes it's a lot cooler, like once you kind of get the context of leadership, not ship.
Yeah.
So
That was a pronounced P right there.
pronounced.
I don't know.
It was.
So who's this book for, Winslow?
Oh, you're asking me? I mean, I would say leaders who want to keep up to date with current leadership thinking and anyone who wants to learn how to influence. So that could be influence in almost in any way, I would say, like influence at work, um, influence in a small community, um, community of peers, community of fellow believers, fellow, um, pretty much
At,
anything that
at
can make a
home,
community. Yeah. At home.
anyway.
Um, yeah. Um, even through social media as a social influencer, uh, it's pretty much it's endless in a way that wherever leadership is, you could use this whole idea of leadership. Did you see the P and the T? You're
I
welcome.
seen it. I seen it.
Or I
Well,
actually heard it. Did you hear it?
I seen it too.
Good. So, before we go a little bit more into it, I just want to let everybody know that we are available on Anchor, YouTube, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, and Castbox now.
What? Moving on up,
Yeah.
moving on up.
At first, it was only a few. Now it's still, I guess, a few, but it's 5 now instead of like 3 that we had.
It looks cooler.
It does. Like those screenshots that I showed you. Like I felt
Yeah.
legit. Even
not
though then you
legit.
sent me then you showed me a text that said everybody gets in. But hey, looking at it on the app, I felt super
Did you do
legit.
that? Dude, did you do that noise background thing right now?
No,
Oh, I could have swore I heard the wah 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 wah.
no. Dang, what's going on in your head?
Nothing, man. Not a dang thing.
There you go.
There
Got
you
that for you.
go.
You're welcome.
Nice,
Anytime.
nice one.
Dang,
That's what I heard.
Yeah. That's my ambient noise or my ambient noise, however you want to pronounce it.
That's your
So,
asthma.
yeah. So, you're gonna start like doing that little, or you could probably do your beard. I heard it earlier when you're doing it.
That's
Or you
weird.
can hear my dry
Let's keep
face.
it pushing. Come on, these people don't want to hear all this stuff, man. Come on, let's keep it pushing.
You're the one that started it. So, pretty much this book helps leaders and would-be leaders develop the ability and desires to make changes in their leadership that will positively boost not just their own growth, but that of their organizations. So it shows how the right mindset and most up-to-date thinking, we can all achieve great things as leaders. And when the time is right, you must learn to leader shift. Leader shift. So one thing that I like it says, or that I like that it says, is pretty much how when you're in the right mindset. Because I believe like a lot of things is when you're in the right mindset. Because it's easy to try to do something like when you're in the wrong mindset, and either A, it's not going to work, or B, it could possibly never get to where it needs to be, as in like being a great leader. Because I think one thing, just in leadership in general, like one thing would be if you're not in the right state of mind, I guess, or the right mindset, then you might be leading people in the wrong way. And I feel like that could be very problematic. And I do believe, like when they talked about the whole thing about, I think it said something about I'll just go back. So about positively boosting not just your own growth, but that of, you could say organizations, you could just say um, somebody that you're mentoring, no matter the case may be, because a lot of times people might think, as he calls them would-be leaders, they might think that by lifting somebody else up, it's only lifting them up and not helping their own self to grow.
So is that like his way of saying wannabes?
I would say wannabes
would be sounds, I guess, nicer than a wannabe.
or maybe
but
it's the more,
they're
I
in
was
the
going to say
leadership
professional.
pipeline.
Yeah, more
They're in the
professional.
professional leadership pipeline.
So I guess you're telling me I can't go to a Fortune 500 or anything like that and be like wannabes. I would have to say
Can't be a
would-be
wannabe.
leaders.
You'd have to be a would be. It sounds like a certain type of animal or something. That's
It
a
could
would
be.
be over there. But I think it's so, but I think when it comes to leadership, I think I don't want you guys to check out. Like if you're like, well, I'm not like a leader or I'm not into leadership. The way John Maxwell, so that's the author, he's wrote several books. He defines leadership simply as influence. And I like that because it's real simple, and influence is something that we all have in one way, shape, or form. You know, anytime we interact with somebody, we engage with somebody, influence is happening. We're influenced, and we are also being an influence. So, if you're saying to yourself, "I'm not a leader," no, yeah, you are, because you lead yourself every day by making decisions. So, I think this is still very applicable, just for personal development, even if you're not involved in any organization or anything of that sort or that nature. Because like right now, I'm not a leader in any organization. Um, I don't know what your role is, Winslow, but I'm right now. My role is just a counselor. I've been a leader. I've been in administration, and I think you've led some things yourself,
Yeah.
right?
Um, and I think so. Like leadership as the word, like the first thing that pops up is it seems like there's more of a I don't know, like more of a role, and it seems bigger. Like when you say leadership, but when you say
Right.
influence, it's like, oh, okay, like I have influence. Like no matter how small it is, like you could influence somebody of buying a porter subs sandwich instead of a deli delicious sandwich or something like that. Um, yes, that is something super small, but it's you influenced their decision. So I
Hmm.
like how you said that leadership kind of equals influence, because a lot of times when you put something, I guess, a word out there, somebody might see it as something different. And then they're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like, that's not me.
Yep.
And I think
Pump
it
the
goes
brakes.
back, it goes back to the whole thing of perspective. And that could go with any word like
Yeah.
failure. Like if you think of the word failure, like it's like, oh my gosh, rather than like a lesson learned, makes it a
Yep.
little bit easier.
Much
So
easier.
truly, yeah. So true leadership in today's world is changing more rapidly than ever. So within this book, they kind of talk about two things for leadership. One, it means leaders are needed more than ever. Sure, in times of stability, we could survive with just managers. So I would say it's in this context, I would almost say that leadership is a broader role. Um, and then managers is somebody that just even though there's like in a sense managing in leadership, I think they're saying with the smallest inkling of being a manager, instability, it's you can just use something so small. Um, and then number two,
Basically,
oh,
it's
go ahead.
like you keep the basically you can keep the house in order, right? Which requires some level of leadership. Keeping the system going. Keep the plate spinning, so to speak. Um, there's a degree if you're a manager where if you're managing people, there's still leadership there. But then there's the next level of like leader, which is during times of chaos or disruption. It's the person who is willing to take that first step out into the chaos and not know what's going to happen, filled with uncertainty, but they're able to lead others into a path forward, right?
Like
Does
into the
that
uncertainty. And
into the
and I think
uncertainty?
and I think the biggest thing is like the uncertainty. Like yes, I believe like managers could do it, but I feel like almost in a sense like a true leader won't necessarily seek it, but they're okay and they're good with it. They're like, all right, well, let's just keep going forward. Like because
Would
there's
you
no going back.
would you say that all leaders must manage, but not all managers are necessarily leaders in the sense the way this
I
book is talking about it?
mm, mm, yes, but no. And I think the reason why I say that is because so in the one that they're talking about, how it's talking about the two types of leadership, and it says about leaders are needed more than ever, but then in times of stability, like you could use just managers. So it's almost differentiating the two between a
Mhm.
manager and a leader. But with me, I think what you said is true. Um, because I believe you have to have some sort of managerial skills in leadership, but not necessarily is a manager a leader. Now, some managers do have leadership qualities, yes.
And
But in
may
the
even be
context that
leaders
you're talking,
themselves.
Yes. But I think in order to be, we'll just go with managers. In order to be a good manager, like you have to have some sort of leadership qualities. Now you could just be a manager and you're not that great of a leader. So almost you're not that great of a manager. But I think a true manager does definitely have true like leadership skills. Now can they lead to a level of 10? I don't know. Do I think they could take the next step forward? Possibly. Um, but yeah, but going back to the whole like book wise, um, it feels like they're differentiated into.
Hmm. I guess when I hear manager, I think more of that's their role, because there's like managing, right? Everyone manages things to some degree, right? But the manager is someone who that is their role. They're the point man or point woman, and it's their responsibility to make sure everything stays in order. For example, in an organization or a small business, or even a store manager or a manager at Jack in the Box or whatever, it's what is your goal as a manager? To keep the house in order, to keep the system running. And so I guess I kind of look at it as like spinning plates a little bit. I guess, does that make sense when I say spinning plates? Because I have a picture in my
So,
head, and I'm assuming.
so I'm the first thing I think is just like a bunch of things going up and plate spinning.
Right.
Something
Yeah,
super like
you just keep all the plates spinning.
general.
Hmm.
Um, but I do like how you said the whole thing of within organization, like even a regular employee, like they are managing something. They're not managers, but they're managing something, whether it's their
Hmm.
time, whether it's, I don't know, a caseload, whether it's whatever
The
the
fry
case may be. Like
station.
they're the what did you
Anything.
say?
The fry
Did you say?
the fry station.
Oh, I thought you said the cry because how you made me cry earlier. So I thought that was in reference. Gotcha. Fry station, not cry station. I get it.
I'm gonna play the Cure for you.
Cure's a good band. Hashtag Cure.
They are. Hashtag Cure. Boys don't cry.
I remember we used to cover that song in a band that I was in case you're
Did you really?
wondering. Yeah.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Did you sing it?
No. Did I
I
play
want to
it?
see
Yeah.
you sing it. Yeah. Hey, the
Yeah.
Cure's tight though. A lot of
They
people
are.
may not understand, but they're classic.
They are.
Anyways, carry on.
Whatever.
Did you get
So
that last
Chase,
part?
what?
The last little banner, the second part? That part. I didn't hear you
That's right.
read that.
I was just seeing if you're paying attention.
I know you
So
were.
number 2, a changing world means that leaders themselves need to stay agile. So pretty much the ability to think quickly, like on their feet, um, be able to go into a direction. I was going to say without hesitation. There could like would you say only it would be without hesitation would make a good leader, or is it somebody that would think things through and then go, or is that
I
all
think it
together
can
as one?
I think it can be both and. It doesn't have to be either or. Because I think in leading, right, when it comes to like making decisions that are going to affect others, you can hesitate on making a decision. It doesn't mean you're not leading. It means you just hesitated, and then you go forward and do it anyways, right? Or you wanted to think about it before you're about to do it, and you chose to stop and put some more thought to it. Doesn't mean you're not leading. And then there's also the person just goes for it. And I think that kind of has something to say about the different types of leadership, because there's like, there's more like wise, like casual, maybe uh I don't know. I guess I just think of there's people who lead that are not A type personalities, you know, but it's
So more
usually A
behind the
type,
scenes.
yeah, more behind the scenes, or maybe like an introverted type leader or something like that. I don't know. There's just different types, right? And there's those that they shoot first, then aim, and then there's those that aim then shoot.
So do you
And
feel
usually it's like the CEO, for example, that like has the vision, and then they lay it all out, and then the operator, right, or the COO has to make it happen, right? They say this. There's an old saying that says the CEO's dream is the COO's nightmare, because he has to make it happen.
So do you think there's personally do you feel that one of them is better than the other? Not in regards to like, oh, I'm a better person than you, but do you think, to your understanding, do you think a leadership that just goes could be better than the one that just stops, thinks? And even though I'm saying stop to think, it could be in a matter of like a couple minutes.
Yeah, I definitely think it takes situational awareness, and I think different situations require different types of leadership, if that makes sense. So like there's going to be people who are like pioneers or like starters, like do startups. They're the ones who are first to raise their hand, right? And they may be considered a leader, right? Because they stepped out first when everyone was still on the line, right? So they're leading in that sense. Okay. And then there's those that maybe they come in, they're like second string. You know what I mean? They come in after that and they do all the so like for example, like in the church world that I'm very familiar with is like there's church planters, right? There's those that go out and basically it's like starting your own business in a lot of ways, right? Except with a lot of spiritual components. And you start a work from scratch, or you start off with a bunch of capital and you have money to work with, right? And then they move on and someone comes in as a leader who's more pastorally gifted. And so they're basically they stay in the house and take care of it. And then they lead within the city and learn how to build ministries, this, that, and the other, and
So
lead
would it
the
almost
people
be
in
like,
those.
a like you're pretty much saying like all startups, and then it would be like, I don't know, like a small startup being bought by like an Amazon or something. Like they might be better equipped to run it, almost
Say
in
it
a sense.
again.
Or so it would be like a startup um building itself, and then Amazon coming in and taking over
And acquiring it. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
acquiring it because maybe they're more equipped to make it
Take take it to that
bigger.
next level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
the
definitely.
so it would be the church planner versus the pastor, in a sense.
Right.
Like the
In a
pastor is the
sense.
one that's going to, in a sense, make it better, I guess, or bring people in with the message type of thing.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of different components to it. But like for example, like a CEO, right? To get away from the church example, like a CEO, right? They say they're the ones that they're the founder. They started it, and they have all the vision, and they're skilled, they're charismatic, they're good with the public, they know how to network, and they just start bringing in, all kinds of attention, people, resources, and they have a
Capital.
board, yeah, capital, right? And they have a board that fully supports them, and so they get it going, right? But say that they're not the best after 2 years because they start getting the itch, and they start getting bored and like I got to move on. And if they were to stay in leadership, they may run it into the ground, or they may not be the best fit versus someone who may come in who knows how to mature an organization. And I think that's where um, the mission has to take precedence over
The
someone's
person.
personal desire. Yeah, over a person, right?
It's
What's the
almost like
mission?
what we were talking about earlier, like the whole thing of being in the right mindset. So at the very
Exactly.
beginning, a CEO might be in the right mindset and want to follow the mission. And then after maybe 2 years, then it's kind of like, I see the next shiny object over here. Now my focus is 25% over here. Now the mission is kind of slacking a little bit. And
Mission creep.
I think that is definitely a huge thing, whether it's a business, whether it's in your personal growth or whatever. I feel as though having a mission in life is good. So then you have that moral compass of what in a sense, like what you're meant to do. Because at any point of time, by having that clear mission of, I don't know, helping people, how about uplifting the human spirit? You know what I'm saying? That's right.
Okay.
At least by having that mission, if you were to, I guess, veer off and go 25% into this new shiny object and 75% into still your mission, like it might still be good, but at the same time, like you're not in the same mindset as once you first started of being 100% into your own mission or into the organization's mission.
Sure. I think it's just really um, having a lot to do with self awareness and knowing your role and knowing how you're wired. I think a leader that doesn't know how they're wired, it can cause problems. And then they can actually begin to question their own leadership because they thought they were a good fit for one thing and they're actually not the best fit for that. And that's where it takes a little bit of humility and to say, okay, here's where I'm good, right? Like, because I'm kind of a, a squirrely, shiny object type of ADHD ish pioneer type of
Ish. Yeah.
mindset, right?
Ish.
Yeah, yeah. and and I can hang and I love supporting the work, but I do get bored after a while. And I like to start things, but I have to get better at starting and putting a person in place versus like letting something just fizzle out or die or just move on, you know, things like that.
So with that being said, having a mission can make your squirreliness a little bit more tamer. True or false?
It gives me direction because I think you can have a mission, that internal compass you're talking about, and still like say, for example, going back to faith because that's just one of
A big
my
thing.
things, right? It's huge. So like the Bible talks about the mission of making disciples, right? I can make disciples in a lot of contexts, right? Which means I can help people understand what the Bible says, work through their barriers. I can basically see where they're at with it, give them new information from the Bible, maybe that they didn't have, fill in some gaps, help them understand. And I can do that in a variety of contexts. I can do it through social media. I can do it, like on videos. I can do it in person. I can do it through work. I can do it through church. A lot of different contexts. So, though there's a mission, it's fluid in a sense where I can still keep to that mission, but I think the effectiveness has to do with how much I commit to one certain context. Because if you like you said, kind of doing 25% here, 25%, then you start diluting your efforts.
Okay, so like earlier, what you said. So I'm going to bring this back up, and then I'm going to mention something else. So earlier, like you said, a lot of people might not. So a lot of you out there that might not think that you're leaders, as Carlos was saying earlier, um, leaders kind of equals influence. So everybody has influence. So anybody that's listening, if you feel that you have influence in something super small, it does kind of turn around into leadership. So with that being said, also I feel like, let's say that you're like, oh, I would never want to lead in anything, or I don't have leadership qualities, then you go back to the influence. But if you're just like, I don't feel like I want to lead or anything like that. So what I would suggest is at least to know what good leadership looks like, because by knowing what good
Yeah.
leadership looks like, then you know that you're on the right path. Because I know what it's like to see, maybe, I'm not going to say bad leadership. We'll go with faulty leadership, or maybe would be leadership. I don't know. Um, and I know what that looks like, and I know that I don't want to follow that. And by you knowing what a good leader looks like, it makes it a little bit easier for you to follow somebody. And I'm not saying that being a follower is bad. Like sometimes there's number one, sometimes there's number twos. Like in a sense, like know your role, like know what you're good at. And by whatever you're good at, then that's what you go full force in. It might not be being a leader, but at least you know what being a good leader looks like and what it's supposed to be.
Excellent point. I'm glad you
I
brought that
try.
up.
I try. So today's secret to being a good leader is the ability to be nimble and agile and to leader shift. So
Jack be
once
nimble.
again,
Jack be
Jack
quick.
be, oh, I thought it was Jack be agile.
Jack.
No? Oh,
As long as he jumps over the candlestick.
yeah, he will. So that comes back to the book that we chose, which is Leader Shift by John C. Maxwell, and what he defines as leader shift. So leadership is to make leadership changes that will boost not just the leader's growth, but the growth of the organization. So first thing that I think,
AKA those around you.
yeah. So it could be one person, it could be two people, it could be whatever. So this is one thing that I didn't talk to Carlos about yet, but throughout this whole thing, typically what I try to do is I try to go a little bit, and I know Carlos does too, but in this situation, I was looking up a few things just on John C. Maxwell and leadership, both. And one of the things that I did see something, and I was listening to something actually on YouTube, and if I can find it, I will try
Dang,
to
overachiever.
post it down in the description. But pretty much it was between him and somebody else, and it was on, what podcast was it on? It was on a podcast.
Was it on his podcast?
No, it was on somebody else's podcast. If I could find it here in a few moments, and I'll throw that little shout out. But pretty much
One
what
day
he
we'll
was
be able to
saying
say, like, it'll be right here in this corner. Click right here.
right there. Wait.
Right there.
So pretty much what he was saying is like leadership. He was talking about leadership, not his leader shift just yet, but it was leadership. So to him, he said leadership means to do things in which you know you will be hurt. So the reason why he brought that up is because he was talking about when he was first, I don't know if this was 40 years ago, 50 years ago, whatever the case may be. But he said a lot of times, like being a good leader is about like mentoring people. It's about helping them to grow into whatever they're going to grow into. So he was telling the story that I guess in the past, when he first started, he had a mentee. That's what I've always called him. I don't know if it's a mentee. Is it a mentee?
Sure.
So he had a mentee that he was mentoring, and this was probably like for 2 to 3 years. But I guess like everything was like going good, and he kind of I don't know
had
if
a
it was like a
would-be.
yeah. I don't know
had
if
to
there was
say
like a
it.
bump. I don't know if there was like a bump in the road or something like that. But eventually, what happened is they kind of split ways. And so I guess he was hurt by it because he was like, I put all this effort and all my knowledge into this mentee, and he just decided to pretty much go off. And I don't know if they went off on bad terms, good terms, whatever the case may be, but nonetheless, he was hurt by it. So his big thing was that like the grand scheme of things, like leadership is to go into those things, even though you know it might hurt you, because
That's good.
by it, especially in the mentoring aspect, I believe is a big part of being a good leader, like being a great leader, is to have other people that you're willing to, I guess, raise up. But if he let his first, I guess, mentor or mentee, if he let that like almost dictate like everything else that he did, who knows if he would be the man that he is today. Like he might have still been the man that he is today, but there is that chance that it wouldn't have happened. And so by him saying that, it just made it a lot easier, like in my head, like, okay. And it kind of goes back to the whole thing of going into the unknown. So the unknown is like, so is this person that I'm going to be mentoring, are they going to kind of like leave and I'm going to feel like I wasted all this time or whatever the case may be? Then it comes down to like, I helped him grow. And I think that's a big thing, is like helping somebody grow is part of
An
being
act
a
of
great
service.
leader. Yes.
I think
So
that's a great topic because it really does boil down to true leadership is servanthood. It's servant hearted. You know, if because if you are only leading in order to create minions or people who are going to just follow you because you want to be the, you know, the superstar, the hero, or whatever the case may be, then you know a lot of times there's leaders like that have a lot of they leave a trail of bodies and a trail of pain behind them because they step on people and they use people rather than serve people. And if you go into a relationship to invest in others, yeah, you're going to get hurt. I've been hurt plenty of times. I've been disappointed. I've been let down. I've been angered. I've been ghosted, and I'm just like, what the heck? You know what I'm saying? And it leaves you feeling a certain type of way. But you know, as you mature and as you grow, you learn that that's part of the occupational hazards of leadership is you're going to get hurt, and then you kind of grow into a perspective, or at least I've grown into a perspective where I provide leadership. And yes, of course, I hope it's reciprocal. I hope this can go somewhere. I hope that, obviously we can continue to work together and do some good work. But I do know that if at the end of the day you walk away, hey, my job, I think Andy Stanley said this, he says, my job is not to fill your cup. My job is to empty my cup. Right? So as long as I'm working to empty my cup and I do it before God and I do it with a good heart, then I'm good.
and so a lot of the, I guess, the byproducts of like being hurt is a little bit less of a problem, because you know what your thing is to do by being a good leader is to empty your cup, and it's not to empty your cup with getting a bunch of praise and all
It has
this
to do
other
with
stuff from.
expectations.
And I think going
It,
into things like that does make it a lot easier, I would
definitely,
definitely say.
definitely. And I think too, without sometimes having a conversation, it's kind of like, and I'm not trying to make it weird, but it's kind of like in a relationship between a man and a woman, right? There's the initial liking, like where you find yourself, attracted to that person. You like their character, they're funny, this, that, or the other, right? And then those conversations happen where there's like levels of intimacy, and then finally you get to, so like, what is this? Like, that's like where you step over the line of, are we going deeper into this relationship? And I think it works the same way with leader, especially like organic or relational leadership, where like especially like in the church, where it's not so much about like a I guess a secular organization where it's about the money and about the mission, and everyone has a clear cut, you know, job description, right? Because without a job description, you don't know what your role is per se. But in church, right, there's leadership and discipleship development. And if people don't know what that is or what to expect, feelings can get hurt and misunderstandings happen. And so I think it's good to have conversations about what to expect, what that looks like, what next steps are. And then it helps to keep proper perimeters in the relationship with healthy boundaries.
Always about
Simone.
healthy boundaries.
Yeah.
So, Carlos, what's the next big idea?
Um, where are we at? Oh, right there. The next big idea is, so one of the key ideas in the book Leadership is that great leaders bring out the best in everyone rather than seeking to shine themselves. So we kind of been touching on that, right? Is it's not about me. It's not about the leader. It has to be, why am I in this? And this has to do with motives, right? This has to do with intentions. To be a true leader, you need to make the mindset shift from me to we, right? Um, and that has to do all with the shift in your perspective, like you mentioned earlier, Winslow. Our perspective makes all the difference in the world, right? And so, we can go to the next one. So it says too many would be leaders think mostly of themselves, focusing on their own goals and aspirations. Now, I think that's pretty easy to get focused on yourself and your own goals and your own aspirations if you're a go-getter, you know? And it's kind of like it reminds me of that saying, like if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with others. And so, and I think if I don't know, I guess I kind of think of it like an only child. An only child has a certain mindset, right? And they can skip a lot of things that other people um, don't have the option to skip when they grow up in a bigger family, like of having to share things, being mindful, being considerate, having to know that, you got to take turns and things like that. Where a single child mindset may not necessarily because you're a single child, you're going to be selfish or anything, but you definitely have a better understanding, I would think, of uh, others and knowing that you're not the only one in the house.
So
What do you think?
do you think being a good leader, um, a good quality or a quality that needs to be there is to be self-aware?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think self-awareness is comes with maturity. It comes with a lot of deep reflection. And I think it comes from a lot of pain too. Um, Usually relationship pain, where you
So
find
can
out things about yourself.
can self-awareness be taught, or is it an experience type of thing?
Well, I think you can
To
teach
a
it
point.
conceptually, right? You can teach it conceptually. Like I could put bullet points, like here's definitions, here's what it is, here's some case studies, here's some examples, and I can paint you a picture. But it's really a process of self-discovery where you're having experiences and reflecting on those experiences and having a good understanding of your role and others' roles in that experience and to learn what you contributed to it, what you could have done different, how we said earlier about different types of leaders. What type of leader or what type of person are you? How are you wired? Are you an extrovert? Are you an introvert? High communicator, bad communicator? Things like that. It helps you to be aware of kind of where you fit in a social situation.
And I think the whole thing of being self-aware, like that's definitely one of those things that I would agree with. That being self-aware would make you a better leader. Um, Now, not having self-awareness, I think you could still be a good leader, but I think to be a more effective leader, um, and to go into the next part, I think you need to have self-awareness, because self-awareness will bring you into the whole idea of what John C. Maxwell is talking about, which is the leader shift. Because
Hmm.
without being self-aware, like how do you know when to shift? And I feel like, and I'm hoping that a lot of the listeners out there, um, you do have a sense of being self-aware. And if there was if there was something that you guys like had questions about, like maybe self-awareness in general, or maybe how we found out, like how we were able to determine our self-awareness, you can always leave a comment. You could go on Instagram, DM us, ask us the question, because like we've said before, is within this whole thing, we want to build that community. And I think building community comes down to asking questions. And I
Hmm.
think even you might ask a question to us, or you might even put a question out there somewhere, even in the YouTube comment section or something like that. I mean, hopefully the big thing with building community, it might not even just be us like answering the questions. It could be people part of the community. Um, and then maybe eventually what we can do is we can do like a Facebook group, for the creative whole, like a community page, something like that, that any questions that somebody may have might just go over to like Facebook and be able to add the question in there, and it could be asked by or answered by us. It could be answered by others. But the big thing is about building that community. So you might have questions about maybe more than just what we are touching on. And I think the community is a great place for us to all gather. No, no matter if you think you're a great leader, no matter if you don't want to be a leader, whatever the case may be, because
Yeah, you could
like I
care
said,
less about that topic.
yeah, because what it comes down to is even if you don't want to be a great leader, then like I mentioned earlier, then you know what a great leader should look like. And that's the person that you can follow because you that might not just be your cup of tea. You might
Yeah, definitely.
want to just you might want to just be the person in the background because I don't know, you're an introvert or whatever the case may be, and you want to just be in the background helping build maybe that leader. And I think the biggest thing in being like backing a leader that you truly believe in, I feel like that is a good thing. And you don't want to be like, I don't know, like first thing I think of is like being T-boned or something like that and not knowing what to do. But at least if you know what a good leader should look like, it's like, okay, like you might have hit me with this, but I know that maybe this isn't what I, in a sense, want to follow. So I will pivot. And pivoting is the same thing as shifting.
Yep.
And you can pivot to where you believe, I guess, that you want to follow.
Yeah, definitely. And I think too, it'd be cool, like if those of you listening, you guys want to even like throw out situational things. Like, hey, man, would love to get your feedback on this, or like Winslow was saying, I would love to talk about this topic, and it could be personal. It don't got to go like out in the public or whatever, but just to like we just are here to literally just be of service. It's just that simple. You don't even have to be about anything like we're literally talking about. If you happen to come across what we're talking about, and you know what, you're like, hey, these dudes kind of flow good together, and they sound like they're comfortable to talk to. Hey, let's talk.
All about talking.
Yep.
Maybe a little bit too much, but we're still
Yeah.
there. We're still
Conversations
there.
change the world.
they they actually do.
They
They
actually
actually
do.
do. So you want to take the next one?
Sure. So a great way to think about being a leader that it does not just think about their own goals and aspirations is to think in terms of an orchestra. Leaders are leaders are like conductors, not soloists. They focus on helping others succeed. And in the book, John also gives another example of uh, of tango dancers, and that how leaders must understand their partners to lead effectively, like in a tango, which requires trust, cooperation, and a mutual understanding. That those things are key in work and also in dance. And I can't help but think about it. Someone said something one time, it always stuck with me. Um, like on a jersey, there's the name on the front of the jersey, right? Which is the team. And then there's the name on the back of the jersey. And I think that there's people who play for the name on the back of the jersey and they don't play for the name on the front of the jersey. Then there's people who play for the name on the front of the jersey versus the back. Does that make sense?
Yes. So do you think there's one that's bigger than the other?
Well, if you're being team oriented, right? Yeah, you should be playing for the team, right?
On
And
the front.
so yeah, on the front, right? Versus if you are just all about making your name great, where basically you're sliding your teammates, you're not following through on certain plays, you're ball hogging, you're showing out. You know what I mean? You want, like, say if it's basketball, you want to be slam dunking and all this stuff, right? It's like that's cool. Like you look really cool, spotlights on you, crowds cheering, but like, how's your team feel about you? Right. And then I get it. Sometimes they're just, just put it out. Sometimes they're just haters. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right. Sorry, this mic's sensitive. So, um, but I don't know what part I cut off at. But if someone maybe shines too much, there may be people who, like that saying goes, that they're hating on you, right? And haters exist; they're very real. I don't really like using that term too much, but it's something that we've all heard that term and we know what it is. So it all boils down to, once again, the mission, right? What is the overall goal and team objective? And are you in the right place, in the right spot in order to help get that mission accomplished? If you're not, then you need to be moved to a different role. Does that make sense?
Yep. It's about knowing your role, knowing the role that best fits, and that context would be in the team.
Yes. Yes. So leaders should help others shine by focusing on their needs, listening, complementing strengths, including them in the big picture, and inviting them to help achieve the vision. And want to take it from
So
here,
it's all
Winslow?
about helping. What? So it's all about helping others shine by being intentional, and I think that's a big part of it. It's about being intentional, like because you could have like somebody that says it's almost in a sense like says a bunch of fluff words, and you might be able to see through it, and you might not be able to see through it. But I feel like being a true leader, you should always speak in a sense from the heart, being intentional and focusing on their needs. And it kind of goes back to like, well, don't forget to focus on personal growth too, but in the right way. And I think in the right way, I guess it comes back down to like what is a good leader, and it's talking about it's we versus me, and I think it's helping others to grow. And I think no matter what, like helping others to grow, like the byproduct would be you're growing also, because by you helping others grow, it's going to reflect on you. And whether people notice or not, like what you should be proud of is that you are helping like other people's grow, like grow into a leadership, um I guess partnership, growing into just making them better as people in general. And I think a lot of things does come down to doing it with intention. Like you have to be intentional with what you do. You have to almost in a sense, like if you're a true leader, you almost have to almost go in the mindset of everything that you say, they're going to take, I guess, as in a sense, gospel, as true as what it is. And so if you're pretty much like almost just giving that fluff, in a sense, you might be leading them in the wrong way rather than in the right way of wanting to see them grow personally. Because, like I said before, by them growing personally, it's reflecting on you on how great of a leader that you can be.
Definitely.
And that's pretty much, I think, what it kind of comes down to. So you cannot be the same, think the same, and act the same if you hope to be successful in a world that does not remain the same. And the world, I don't think, is ever. Eventually, it will, but for now, I think it's always going to pivot, change. Um, Definitely, it's just not going to remain the same. It'll be nice if it does remain the same, because then you have these parameters that you could go be like, oh, well, it's always been like this, so this is what I need to do. But
Those days are
unfortunately,
over.
yeah, but unfortunately, it's going to have twists and turns everywhere, and you have to be able. And it goes back down to the whole thing of leadership, because by being a good leader, you'll be able to pivot, you'll be able to shift into whatever the case may be, whatever's in front of you. And I think that's what makes a great leader. Uh, well, I guess that's what makes a leader into a great leader. I would say the ability to be agile, to be able to think on their feet, and do all the things that they need to do in order to help others to grow.
Yeah, definitely strong characteristics.
Mm-hmm.
So, why do we need leadership? Once again, just going back in closing of the conversation tonight is because leadership today requires adaptation to fast-paced, complex, and diverse world, leveraging of technology and effective communication. And so, I think as the world is changing, um, uh, if we are a, if we have an attachment to the way things used to be, we're the people who get left behind. Um, and I think as the world is constantly changing, people at one point in time never thought they would be using smartphones. They never thought they would be on social media. They never thought they'd be doing things like this, podcasts and videos. And when COVID hit, the world of Zoom, and now you got AI, coming into the world, changing everything like crazy. And there's just going to be so much change happening so fast, and it can make your head spin. And if you don't have either the leadership within yourself and the courage to face the uncertainties, right? It's going to be natural to look to others, and you're going to have to want to look to people that you trust, that you feel are competent and that will lead you in the right direction, or at least they have a good record, and can show that they've led before, they've been through some things, and they're trustworthy. And I think that's really what it boils down to, because we all look to our side. We look around, who's good at this area, who's good at that area, at this skill, this task, who's been through this before. Because the times are changing, and we got to be changing with the times.
I was so fast.
Yes, most definitely.
So the two things that I would like to bring up lastly, are, I believe it was two great points. Um, and it was the 2 points of, and I've mentioned this twice already, but the reason why I mention it so much is because I think it is definitely like an important thing, which is one thing what Carl said. You might not be thinking that you are a leader or you could go into a leadership role. Um, but know that being a leader, having any sort of leadership role equals influence, and everybody influences something probably on a daily basis and you don't even notice. And then the other thing is, maybe you don't want to be a leader. I really want you guys to know what good leadership qualities are and what it looks like. So then you know what you want to do and where you want to follow. And I
Because
think
leadership's
that
part
will
of life,
help a lot.
no matter
Yeah.
what.
And I think it's in all aspects. In what you want to, not necessarily put all your marbles in one basket, but for you to know what you want to, in a sense, follow. Because I don't want you guys, and I surely don't want us to follow the wrong leadership styles that might lead us into something that, not necessarily that we're uncomfortable with, but something that isn't part of maybe our moral compass of our mission. And I hope you guys do, or that you sit down and think about like what your mission in life is and what you want to bring, um, to the world, so then you can focus on that. Is there any last thoughts from you, Carlos?
I think I feel weird about the topic of leadership sometimes, because I think I guess I have this little voice in my head. He's talking about leadership. He must think he's a leader, right? And it's like it's not even about that, right? And at the same time, I know that I've led things, and I know that you've led things, and I know a lot of people who would never like to take on no title or any wear any type of hat like that, but they just do the work of a leader. They think like a leader. They're willing to step out and do something on behalf of others, because at the end of the day, that's really what it's about. It's stepping out to improve humanity, to improve life, some way, shape, or form. It's for the benefit of others, and just maybe a closing quote. That's a John Maxwell quote that's always stuck with me. That if you think I think I may butcher it, but basically it's if you think you're a leader and you turn around and no one is following, you're merely taking a walk.
That is a pretty good one. That's your mic drop of the
That's
day.
that's my mic mute.
Dang.
Dang.
All right, guys. Well, once again, thank you for sticking around and listening to me and Carlos. And this is the
Thanks for
Creative
hanging out.
Hole. And we hope you enjoyed our discussion on the first part of The Leader Shift by John C. Maxwell.
Not leadership.
That's right. So we hope that we can connect through YouTube comments, Instagram, whatever the case may be. We're here for you guys, and we hope to see you, or we hope that you guys listen next week. So with that being said, peace.
Peace. All right. Bless you
Peace
guys.
or peace out. All right. See ya.